Buenos dias. Yes. I'm Congresswoman Kathy Castor, represent the Tampa Bay area in the United States Congress, joined by community advocates, many of our neighbors, to call everyone to action throughout this community and this state for comprehensive immigration reform. A path to citizenship for families and our neighbors that doesn't exist currently. A path to citizenship not only benefits immigrant families and many who live in the shadows currently, but if we're able to pass comprehensive immigration reform, it will benefit everyone. It will benefit all Americans and improve the economic well-being of all of our neighbors and small businesses. And isn't it appropriate that we kick off this call to action in Ybor City? Yes. Look at the beautiful immigrant statue here. Now, Ybor City is the heart of the Tampa Bay area. And we have something of a unique story and history here in Ybor, but it's one that in many ways has been replicated all across the United States because we are a country of immigrants. Now, our unique twist on the story here in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area, is in the late 1800s, immigrants traveled from Cuba, from Spain, from Germany, even from China, to work in the cigar factories. They all came together here and built their lives. And as important that as the customs and the foundation laid by those early immigrants here in Ybor City, it's probably more important what their hopes and dreams were for their children and their grandchildren. Their descendants today, many of you probably have neighbors, or if you go into many of these small businesses today, their grandparents or great-grandparents came here from Spain or Cuba or other places. And what they hoped for their children and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren simply was for folks to be successful professionals, business owners, and community leaders. And here in Tampa, they have succeeded. And that is the essence of the American dream. This nation has always been a nation of immigrants. People from all over the world have come to America since the founding of our great country for better opportunities and a better life, not just for themselves, but for their children and their grandchildren. Todos somos Americanos. That is why we need to fix our broken immigration system through comprehensive immigration reform to provide a path to citizenship for the estimated 11 million people who currently live in the shadows. Again, this will benefit many of our neighbors, but it will benefit all of us if we can accomplish this over the coming months. For example, between 1990 and 2005, immigrants in America started 25% of the highest growth companies. And these companies directly employ an estimated 220,000 people in the United States. These immigrant-founded companies include Intel, Google, Yahoo, and eBay. Immigrants are nearly 30% more likely to start a business than are non-immigrants, and they represent almost 17% of all new small business owners in the United States. But we have a challenge ahead. Many people throughout the country think that people right now who do not have legal status can simply apply. But the message, and I need our friends in the press to communicate this, there is no legal pathway to citizenship that exists right now. I hear from a number of people who say, well, why don't the dream kids, the dreamers, why don't they just apply for citizenship? That pathway does not exist legally. And that is why it is important now for us to craft a comprehensive legal pathway to citizenship. Now, I'm joined here today by many experts that can explain that in greater detail. Nancy Palacios, who is a dreamer herself, a very successful student here, who would like to continue her education. America really is the only country she's ever known. But we've got to create that path to citizenship for Nancy and folks like her so that she can live the American dream that she's entitled to. Bishop Charles Lee, the president of the Florida Council of Churches, and Lourdes Villanueva, the president of the Florida Immigrant Coalition. And I want to thank the members of Mi Familia Volta, LULAC, and Comprehensive Immigration Reform Now also for being here. But Nancy, could you come forward and tell your story?
Good morning, everybody. I was asked if I could represent the many thousands, many millions of students that, like myself, came to this country at an early age. That, you know, we were brought and we were always instructed that all we had to do was go to school and perform well and everything was going to be okay. I came to this country at the age of 6. I am now 23. I have been in this country for 18 years. 18 years of which I have made this country my own. I have been performing very well in school. I graduated in 2007 with a 5.05 GPA. With a dream of being a doctor one day, with a dream of going to school, going to college, being the first in my family to graduate, and giving that, you know, that honor to my parents that they had struggled so much and they had given so much of themselves, leaving family behind, coming to this country, not knowing anything, not knowing the language, not knowing how it was going to be here, for my sisters and for me, you know. So I always had that dream that whenever I graduated, I was going to start a college and I was going to become a doctor. I was the first one to graduate in 2007, like I said, with honors. Being the oldest of 2 sisters and a brother, I felt like I had that responsibility to overachieve, and I didn't have that privilege of being a bad student and of not performing well, because I had to set that example for my siblings, and because I had to honor that sacrifice that my parents had done. I was the first one to graduate. I graduated with honors, and I said, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna go to college. I was, you know, I come from a migrant background, so my family worked and picked the crops and worked the fields, and I know what it is to work those fields. It's hot. You don't want to do it, but we had to do it. I enrolled, you know, with the help of my migrant advocate, I enrolled in the community college, Hillsborough Community College, and you know, through a private scholarship of the migrant program, I was able to pay for that for a couple of semesters, and then out of pocket. And just summer of this past year, 2012, I obtained my associate in arts and health science. Yes, it took me a while, but it has cost me a lot to do it, and I'm not stopping there. I'm not stopping there because I know what my potential is. I know what I'm capable of doing. I know that those 2-3 jobs that my parents have had to held to be able to sustain us and to be able to give us what we need is going to be worth you know, their sacrifice. I am currently, you know, wanting to enroll and transfer to University of South Florida and finish my bachelor in biochemistry there, and eventually apply for med school. That is my ultimate goal, and I'm going to make it happen, whatever it takes. Recently, I did apply for the Deferred Action Program for childhood arrivals, which was passed in June 15th of this past year. Once they opened that date on August 15th, I was one of the first ones, together with my siblings, with my 2 sisters who were also without status, to send those applications. My sister, you know, my youngest sister was approved first, then my next sister, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going wrong? Like, why am I not getting approved? Why, you know, I have everything that it takes. Finally, like a couple of months later in November, I was granted deferred action for childhood arrivals. I was granted my work permit. I now have a work permit, a work social. I now have in the state of Florida a driver's license for a year. But that's not enough, because I still come home and I see that my parents come home tired from work, and then I have to leave for work or I have to leave for school. And even though I'm happy that I have been able to obtain that, and that my sisters have been able to obtain that because my younger brother is a citizen, I still live with that fear that one day I might come home and my parents might not be there, or that I might get that call at work, or that, you know, that call at school and say, you know what, your parents have been detained, or ICE has raided your house. And I don't want to live in that fear. We have to remember that that the sacrifice that our parents have done is very important, and we decide what we want to do with that, you know. I decided that I want to keep fighting. I feel like legalization works. Look at all those thousands of documented youth, all those dreamers that came together even after the DREAM Act had not passed in 2010, after it failed. We did not give up. We said that we're going to keep fighting, and we fought for what we believed in. And in June 15th of last year, we were able to pass deferred action for childhood arrivals. This works. Us pushing forward and saying what we want and what we need and what we deserve works. But we have to come together as a community. We have to hold our representatives accountable for the different promises that they are making. We have to urge Congress to come up with something that will relieve not only myself, but families like myself. I'm not the only one. Just last night, there was a very known well dreamer that her family got raided, and her mother was taken away, and her brother was taken away. This should not be happening, and this is happening. Legalization works. You know, now I have a work permit. I can contribute back to the community. I contribute back, you know, with taxes. I now, you know, I'm able to drive. I can pay insurance. I can pay, you know, I had to take out a car to be able to drive. You know, I'm putting back into this country what it's given me. And I feel like our parents and our families should be able to do the same. DACA, you know, as Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals is known, I feel like it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid that was put in this country right now to cover up all the bad things, all the broken immigration system that we have right now. And it shouldn't be like that. We need a real reform, a real immigration reform that will not only relieve my parents, and that after 2 years, you know, what I'm left with, you know, with that fear of being deported again. In 2 years, I would have to repay again to be able to get that work permit again. But there's still that uncertainty. There's still that, you know, we're going to leave the country in that, you know, that there's no stability, because in 2 years we're going to be able to we're going to have to apply again. And then what about those people that are already working and giving back to the community? What are we going to do with that? You know? I believe that a pathway to citizenship is the only rightful way to honor the sacrifices and contributions that many immigrants and many parents give to our students and to their children. And I think anybody who was put in that position, everybody comes here for different reasons, would do the same for their children. I urge everyone to please call your representatives, Congress, you know, hold them accountable for these things and stick together. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Nancy. See, Nancy is a wonderful example of a young person who has played by the rules all of her life. She was brought here through no power of her own when she was 6 years old. She was an outstanding student, graduated from Durant High School with honors, went on to attend Hillsborough Community College. She needs a pathway to become a citizen of the United States of America. Right now, the deferred action, the way you put it as a Band-Aid, it is a Band-Aid. It only applies for 2 years. Thank you, President Obama, for taking action when the United States Congress would not. But now it's time for the United States Congress to act. And if we don't do that, what's going to happen with Nancy is she will continue to live in limbo. She will not be able to get in-state tuition at the University of South Florida to continue her medical studies. We need talented young people in the medical profession more than ever. So I'm hopeful, Nancy, with your leadership and your call to action today, that we will see progress. Now, Bishop Charles Lee, the president of the Florida Council of Churches, has joined us. I want to thank him for his advocacy. He works with families day in and day out and understands what many of them are going through. So, Bishop, would you say a few words?
I'm glad to hear that she's interested in becoming a doctor, because as I age, I know I'm going to need them more and more. You know, I look at the statue and I hear your story, and I remember my own grandparents. They came to Ybor City as young children, and in a different time, a more generous time, they became citizens and contributed to the city and to this country in a great, mighty way. And I benefit from it. You know, I'm here today, and I got my education, and I lived the wonderful life I've lived because of them, and because the nation was open to their coming. Congresswoman Castor has said that this is a nation of immigrants, but Florida is even more a state of immigrants. Most of us came from somewhere else, or our parents did, or grandparents. You know, those of us who have benefited from very generous immigration policies in the past and citizenship policies, sometimes we forget who we are and where we've come from. For us to at the same time tell new immigrants, we don't want you here, we want to put up barriers, we want you to jump through hoops, that's hypocrisy. And look, Jesus had his strongest words of condemnation, in fact his only words of condemnation, consistently, for people who benefited from privilege and then refused to pass it on to others. You know, in Christian tradition and in the scriptures, the family has always been recognized as the place where faith, generosity, community, and character have first been built. And out of that place, people have gone on to do great things throughout history. And the present immigration policy we have keeps families apart for years, decades, so they don't qualify under this or that. And I was very moved hearing about the people being picked up and families broken up by our enforcement policies. To do that is something that the Christian churches in Florida find abhorrent. To break up families, to leave children without their parents, is something that really attacks the values of the kingdom of God. We're really happy, and we applaud Congresswoman Castor for co-sponsoring of bills to turn our immigration policy into something we can be proud of. And more than that, we applaud you. Thank you for your champion of this cause. But I want to tell you one last thing for me, is that for us not to back this, for us not to push it forward, it's not honoring the values that are important to God. And as a Christian people, as people of faith, we have no choice but to offer the benefits we've got to our brothers and sisters. Not to do that is to devalue God.
Well, thank you, Bishop, and thank you again for being here and your inspirational words. I'd now like to call on Lourdes Villanueva, who is the president of the Florida Immigrant Coalition. Lourdes, thank you very much for your leadership. Tell us what is happening out there with families, especially, you know, Florida is an agricultural state as well, right here in Hillsborough County. The whole Tampa Bay area, the strawberry industry, the citrus industry, tomato industry is the backbone of economic well-being for this community. What is happening there for families? And share what you're hearing directly from them.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone, but first of all,